For more than 2 years, I wrote a men's column for the Globe and Mail newspaper. I'd never even considered men's issues, really, before that, but the editor of the publication at the time wanted the subject to be covered, and so I obliged. And thus, the door was open to a world I had never even imagined. Divorced fathers denied access to their children, even though they paid enormous amounts of child and spousal support, and the courts had awarded them joint custody. Women having affairs who had decided to, as lawyers say, clean house by telling the police they were being abused. They weren't, but the cops were obliged to arrest the husband and prevent him from returning to his home. Men who were themselves victims of chronic physical and emotional abuse being told by the authorities to, quote, suck it up and be a man. Men taking their own lives because their children were gradually turned against them by angry ex-wives. Now, each time I covered such stories, I would receive myriad letters from men pleading for help. Not much I could do. I mention this because just a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Warren Farrell, named by the Financial Times as one of the top 100 thought leaders and author of a number of vital and best-selling books, was due to speak at the University of Toronto. His subject was the crisis among boys and how they were not doing well educationally, leading to multiple adult problems. And Dr. Farrell, by the way, will be my guest in just a few moments' time. He's enormously respected for his challenge to the assumption that men have complete gender power. And he's also controversial because he has questioned some of the statistics about abuse, rape, and gender imbalance. He supports his claims with a great deal of research, of course, but none of that matters to those who would silence him. Now, there were around 100 of these fanatics at the university before he spoke, ripping down posters, threatening and insulting anybody who tried to attend the lecture, and explaining, as only heavily funded students can do, that you should be effing ashamed of yourself, you effing scum, to those with whom they disagreed. They gave Nazi salutes to the police and screamed in their faces that they were effing scum and effing pigs, including, by the way, to the women police officers who were standing there. Why some of them were not arrested, frankly, is beyond me, as they were clearly physically intimidating other people. But failure to arrest violent thug leftists is now common at such events. The ugliness and stupidity of the mob was just invincible. So caked in bad makeup and piercings, their faces creased in hatred and self-loathing. They screamed at Farrell and anybody who wanted to hear him, supporters or opponents, by the way, and then they tried to block all of the exits and the entrances. They laughed at and abused anybody who tried to tell personal stories about tragedy and suffering, chanted that men's rights groups were hate groups, and proudly stated that their intention was to close down the event and prevent free speech. Now, in spite of all this, Farrell did speak, and he spoke very well. But to think that feminism has so often become this, and to see the true shape of the contemporary women's movement is sad indeed. You know, as the left so love to say, shame, shame, shame. Never, ever complain if you have to, I don't know, remortgage the house or get another job to pay for your kids' education at university because they're wonderful places. Oh, look, generally they are, for goodness sake. Let's not be too harsh. But that there is the spew of censorship now is so influential in North American universities. A man called Dr. Warren Farrell, who's written many, many books, highly, highly regarded, fascinating man. He spoke at the University of Toronto a couple of weeks ago, and about 100 people decided to protest. Now, you're going to see some video now. A lot of it, we can't play the audio because the language is so filthy, we're not allowed to air it on television. These are university students, publicly funded, by the way. So when it goes quiet, it's not an error, it's because we have to apparently protect the airwaves. Have a look at it now, please. Here they are again. The language, what they're saying now, we can't actually air, but they're screaming and shouting. You can imagine the things they're saying. And now we'll have some order in a few seconds' time.
You're doing it really well. Good job.
This is what men's rights look like. This is what men's rights look like. This is what men's rights look like. This is what men's rights.
And now, a lot of these cops, by the way, are female cops, and the students, there you go, making some monkey, pig noses, seagull salutes, screaming and shouting, threatening people, and it goes on and on. Anyway, there's a lot of it. Go to the internet and you can see the whole thing in its entirety, and really it is shameful. I don't for a moment, by the way, suggest all students are like this, but enough to cause problems. Dr. Warren Farrell, he's written many books about men's rights, about how men are really treated in society. I've never heard him or read him say anything that is irresponsible, why men are the way they are, and the myth of male power. He joins us now from San Francisco. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you. Now, I've got a feeling, I hope I'm wrong, that what you experienced at the University of Toronto was not unique. Does that happen to you quite a bit?
No, it hasn't. I've only had one protest in my 35, 40 years of speaking before, and that was 4 people who ended up being able to be invited into the presentation that I was doing, and then they became supporters of what I was about.
My God,
but this was really quite...
Honestly, I'm completely stunned by that, because I thought you were going to say to me, yes, this happens quite a bit. I am absolutely ashamed that the city in which I live, that one of my children has attended this university, that you should be treated like that. It says it's a terrible stain on Canadian society that more than 100 people should act in such a way.
I have no problem, of course, with protesting, and I used to actually lead protests for the National Organization for Women in New York City. Their Women's Strike for Equality. I was sort of deeply involved with the feminist movement. What I do have problems with, as I'm sure you'll agree, is that they created a human blockade to prevent people from even hearing me. And so that moves from freedom of speech being exercised to freedom of speech being prevented. And the real thing that they were protesting was both a combination of me and the Canadian Association for Equality, who sponsored me, and their plan was to, they felt that gender issues should be discussed by and be about both genders, like men and women. And so they were feeling that, that boys are in crisis today. So I was speaking on why boys are in crisis, what the solutions are. So when a group prevents, defames, tears down posters and defaces the posters, and then it was only because Steve Bruley, with that YouTube video, he happened to be there doing a documentary, and just the coincidence of that allowed people to see how a group of people who, with good intent, that is trying to expand the options of women, became ill-informed and then assumed that they had the right to prevent other people from hearing.
I have to say, I am pleasantly surprised, because even someone as anonymous as myself, I speak at universities a fair bit, and not that sort of thing. There may be a protest or two, but posters are routinely ripped down and defaced. I mean, that's just standard practice now. But also, I mean, I don't understand why there weren't, if any, more people arrested. They were saying about you, and this will be a slander, it wasn't written, but they were saying that you denied that rape existed or said that rape was a sport.
No, in fact, this is one of the really sad things, is I have, this is from I wrote a chapter in a book called The Myth of Male Power on rape. And it was about rape prevention, and it was saying basically that date rape is in many respects even worse for a woman than stranger rape, because date rape is something that happens after the woman invests trust in a man. And then when that trust is violated, that really is damaging to her in a sort of post-traumatic type of way. And so to distort us, and then I did try to do a deeper explanation than the feminist perspective on rape is what is there about no that you don't understand? And that is as simplistic as saying, a group of women saying, what is there about shades of gray that you don't understand? There is complexity in body language and tones of voice that need to be understood. And so rape prevention is about understanding the male-female dialogue in both eye contact, body language, and words. And when you put all that together, that's prevention. So to take that from that understanding to what they did was very sad.
Yes, but it was absolutely tragic. And I sincerely hope and expect, actually, the authorities at the University of Toronto to identify these people who admitted to the camera what they were studying, often women's studies and things like that, and to reprimand them in some way. And if you acted like this outside of a political context at the university, you will be in deep trouble. There should be repercussions for what goes on. I would like to get you, because we haven't really spoken about your beliefs, which I think are fascinating. I'd love to get you back on the show to talk about those on another occasion, if you would.
Absolutely, I'd be happy, especially the boy crisis, because as you know, that's affecting Canadian boys now, where they're dropping out at that 2/3
We will
level.
do that. Thank you so much. And I'd like to apologize, by the way, on behalf of Canada. You should not have been treated thus. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.